What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Loop Live. My name is Matt McCoy. I'm the founder of loopcommunity.com. And today we've got very special guests from Austin Stone Worship. Jarryd and Jimmy are here with us from Austin Stone Worship, and we're going to be talking about their music. But I also want to ask them some questions just about how worship is organized at their church, as far as their bands, their scheduling, their auditioning process, and also maybe how they've handled that over the past 2 years with COVID. So it's going to be a really great conversation. If you guys have any questions at all, type them down in the chat box wherever you're watching this. If we have good questions, we'll take some questions live. So get your questions ready. And without further ado, here is Austin Stone Worship. Jarryd and Jimmy. What's up,
happening?
guys?
Hey, guys. Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. Glad to have you guys on the show. So what do you two do with Austin Stone? Tell me just a little bit about like your guys' roles. Like what does your week look like as part of Austin Stone Worship?
Yeah, so we're both worship pastors at our church and elders at our church. And our church specifically is made up of 6 congregations across the city of Austin. And I'm a worship pastor at our North congregation, and Jimmy is at our West congregation. So our week looks pretty much like worship pastor elder role. I mean, we're serving our church and leading
Yep.
worship on Sundays and pastoring our volunteers and our bands. And so, yeah.
Well, rehearsing, planning set lists,
hmm
having meetings throughout the week, not just with folks that we call partners, which are people that are what do folks call those things? Partners.
Partners.
I know, like I can't remember. Whatever other churches call. We call them partners, members. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Man. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. But yeah, man, we love getting to do the things we get to do, and sometimes some of that looks like writing and even recording other music that we're working on as well. It depends on the season that we're in.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I was on staff for about almost 10 years at a church in Chicago called Harvest Bible Chapel, vertical worship. And we had multiple campuses around the city as well. Like I think we had like 7 or 8 campuses or something. I'm curious from your guys' perspective, when at our church, we actually kept every single set list exactly the same across every campus. Do you guys do that? Or is every church kind of autonomous and you guys build your own set lists? Or do you guys try to keep it all exactly the same?
Man, here's the deal. We like to make sure that the message is centralized, meaning even if it's what we like to call an all-skate, where all the pastors at each congregation are preaching, we still make sure the message, the outline of the message is the same, and the same similar message and main context of the text is coming out to that congregation, whatever they are. And with worship, though, we all are autonomous in a way. We get to choose our own set list. We get to plan those, and we basically lead the songs that we think that are best for our people that are in front of us, rather than not saying this is the wrong way to do it, but rather than other folks hearing songs that won't work well for that demographic. We'd much rather let our worship leaders cater to the people that we're leading that specific Sunday. So that's how we do it, and we love it. I mean,
Yeah.
I love being able to plan my own set list and care for the people really well at my congregation.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I would say the makeup of our church just has different demographics. Like our congregation specifically have some older people in it, whereas our downtown congregation is right next to the University of Texas, has a lot of college kids, and so we build our sets and our liturgies each week based on the people that we're leading. We don't necessarily have. Now, there might be some songs that we all may, like one song we might agree, like, all of our people,
after the message,
all of our people need to be singing this song.
I think that's
There's
a good
to do whatever
tip
songs that we want
too for anybody leading worship. Sorry, I think there's a delay on just instead of just picking songs blindly, really thinking about who are the people you're leading, and like picking songs for them. Because I do, and that could be even a church that's just a single campus church, but having that mindset as you're planning your set lists, I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So tell me a little bit about Austin Stone Worship. How did you guys start that? And also, what does that look like as far as like, do all the worship leaders from every campus get together like once a month and do songwriting together and then you do an album together? Or like, just give us some of the practical, how do you make Austin Stone worship happen with 7 campuses?
Yeah, man, I would say, as far as like time frame, I've been here for about 14 years. Jared, how long you been here?
6 years.
And yeah, so it's kind of I've been there from the beginning when Austin Stone Worship like started and got became what it would end up becoming. I guess you could say. But it all came from just a dream that one of our guys had of us caring for and loving other churches and pouring into other worship leaders and doing that in the way where we are writing songs that come straight from Scripture and are also resourcing people as much as we can, but also out of a heart of discipleship and development and wanting to develop worship leaders because we as worship leaders got together and we thought, man, there was only a couple of us on the team at the time. And we just thought, man, what are some of the things that we personally would have wanted to know before these as worship leaders, worship pastors? And we came up with a fun curriculum and we ran a couple of plays of that over the last 14 years. Man, fast forward now, we write together, we do songwriting, we do all those things. Our first album, I think, came out in either 2009 or 2010, one of those years. And we've had several albums happen since then, and a lot of that is very intricate, and how we do that is very intricate, and we can get into the weeds of that. But the overall overview of it is we have a songwriting retreat that we try to fight for that happens whether once a year or twice a year, and our teaching pastors, they get together twice a year to um, nail down what the sermons will be about for the next 6 to 9 months. And when they come back from that meeting, they share that information with us, and we fight to write songs in light of what our church will be going through. And that's what we're doing. We're writing songs for our church specifically, and then if they can work at other churches, that's great. But that's not our goal. Is for us to be writing songs for other churches. We're writing for our people, and that's where that comes from. And a couple of us are like do a better job in a way. We have like a more of a skill set in writing than others. So man, like a lot of those guys write more often, and they take time to write and co-write with others as well. And that happens sporadically depending on what's coming next. If there's another album that's potentially coming, or just to continue to flex that muscle as much as you can and get better at it. Just trying to write when you can. So, Jay, anything else you want to add to that, man?
No, I think that's good. I think what I love about our church and the way that Austin Stone Worship is set up specifically is that, we each lead at a congregation, but we very much like work together during the week.
Yep.
It's not like
We see each other every week.
we're not like siloed to our congregations, so there's a creative energy on our team that we're able to collaborate on things. We're able to write together. And we're able, like even today, we were talking about like set lists and stuff for Sunday, there's just such a collaborative nature to our team that I feel like has been really healthy for Austin Stone Worship.
And I'll add to that, man. Like one of the things I've really loved about our church in general, even yesterday, our staff meeting for our entire staff, which our staff is huge. It's like over 180 some people, including residents. There's about maybe 200 or so, like all together. And our whole staff meeting was all worship through song and through reading scripture. And that's all we did for the whole staff meeting. And we had 2 of our worship leaders lead worship, and we all got to be a part of that. And at times, a lot of our staff meetings do have worship through song as a piece of the staff meeting. And that's just a really good way to like unify us as a staff, as well as let other people that are at other congregations hear those other worship leaders lead, and for them to be bought into our entire team as well. And then on top of that, man, we meet once a week as a team, and we have vision casting during that time frame, and we talk about hard things and good things, and we also do this thing where we celebrate one another, which is really cool. So every meeting, 2 people stand up and they celebrate some folks on the team. And our team now, we call it our creative team, which is not just Austin Stone Worship, but anybody that does creativity with it on our staff. The folks that are doing all the design, our team, all the guys that are helping out musically and all those things, all meet together as a team together now, which is awesome, and I
Yeah.
love that. So that's been really good for our team and unifying us as a family.
That's awesome. So you guys released an album, Something Greater, and then another one recently called Jesus is Greater, a live album. What do you think is the best song that's come out of Austin Stone Worship, in your opinion?
That's a hard question,
That is a
bro.
hard question. I would well, I was actually thinking about this last night because I was thinking about the song Jesus is Better and how we still sing that song
Yeah,
pretty
yeah, that's a great
frequently,
one.
Like I'm thinking about us singing that this Sunday. Like it's just, and that song's been around for a long time. I don't
Yeah.
even know when that came out.
Mhm.
2013, 2014 maybe. And so people still really connect with that song. So I would say Jesus is Better is probably
Yeah.
my vote.
And man, I would say I'm an Enneagram 7, so you can't be like pigeonholing me to saying one. I've got multiple in my head right
Yeah.
now. And to be honest with you, man, like I think for me personally, it depends on the mood that I'm in. Because Something Greater, which is the title track of that album that we did with TGC, man, I'll be honest with you, hey, the first I heard that song and it was dead, I was like, oh, it's all right. And then as I heard it again, I was like, man, there's something about it that's awesome. And then I collaborated with one. I led worship one Sunday, and I was like, man, I think I want a female to lead some of the lower parts. So man, it became a co-led song, and that's what it is on that live album. And when it became co-led, man, I fell in love with the song even more so. And some guys aren't like that, but for me, man, lyrically it was great. But singing it for me just by myself, yeah, man. For me, I was like, man, I want somebody else to sing those low parts to keep the energy up as well. So, but yeah, man, yeah,
How do you guys
I can't pick one, bro.
how do you guys decide what songs go on the album?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a good question. I mean, there are so many demos of
Yep.
songs, and it's I mean we're writing all the time. In fact, I saw a list this morning of some of the songs that are kind of in process,
Yep.
that are just demos or just ideas, and it's really just a collaborative nature of like what is the best expression for our team and for our church right now? Like what do we want to say if we put something out there? Like what are the best songs?
It's kind of like the theme. What's the theme of the album, and which songs go with that theme?
Yeah.
And if they do, awesome. And then we put the other ones kind of in a vault, or we go back to them and keep rewriting them and making them better.
I was going to ask, what happens to all the songs, the island of misfit songs? Like what happens to all the songs that don't make it?
Yeah, either you're singing them by yourself, hanging out with Jesus, or you may even try to lead them in your congregation at a prayer service or something like that, and seeing if they're like if they can be used in different areas. So
that is something I'll say about some of the new songs is we like to try them out either like in smaller gatherings like family prayer nights or even
staff
meetings. Like just to see how the songs land, because if they don't land with those people, then we're not going to release it to something.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And if it doesn't land with our people, it definitely because we're releasing those albums for our people. So many people in the beginning, they'd always ask, "Hey man, we love y'all's version of this song. Are y'all like can I get it somehow?" And I'm like, well, "No, you can come back to church next week, and we might do it." But yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears here a little bit. For sure, everybody needs to go listen to Austin Stone Worship. If you have not listened to their new album, check it out wherever you listen to music. But let's switch gears here and talk practical worship leader stuff. All right, this is the nitty gritty Monday through Friday issues. And I'm not sure at your guys' churches, like if all of your volunteers kind of move around to different campuses, or every campus or church, has all of their own volunteers that stay at that campus every single weekend. Something we hear from worship leaders a lot right now, I feel like more than ever, I'm hearing it, is worship leaders are having trouble finding worship and tech volunteers and band members. How have you found success with this to actually fill in all the missing positions that you need?
That's a really good question. And I'm definitely not going to say that we have this figured out because
Nah,
we're still
man.
learning a
Nah, man.
lot. I will say that one thing that's been unique, and for me personally, Austin Stone is the third church that I've served at on staff, and this is the first church that I've ever been at that we have a band centric model, which means we play with the same band members every single week. So there's it's very easy for that. It feels like a family, and so there's a lot of camaraderie in it. There's like when I'm leading with the same people every single week, I know their stories. I know what they've been going through the last, couple weeks. And so it just feels like a family. I know a lot of churches don't have that. And I've been in other churches where, you're switching volunteers in and out and you never know if, somebody's going to get sick last minute. And I mean, I've been in those worlds.
Yeah.
And our production teams at all of our campuses are all volunteer. And so that's the method that we use. We rotate them in and out. But I think the best thing that I've seen is that there needs to be like a collective sense of what you're going for. There needs to be a vision of why you do the things that you do. And we've been taught here that proximity means influence, so that to have any influence over the teams or the people that you lead, you need to have proximity to them, which means you need to be around them. And so we did worship collectives for a long time where we would gather all of our volunteers together in one place once a month
from all of our
congregations and like speak and cast vision again, tell them why they were there, tell them why they were valued. And they're just, I don't know, when you tell people that over and over and over again, they get bought into the mission and vision again over and over because they forget it, even once a month they forget it. And so we saw a lot more buy-in from people when there were regular like touch points with them, making them feel like, yes, you're a part of this. In fact, I can't lead worship without you. Like you're so vital to the mission and vision of what we do on Sundays.
Yeah.
So,
and it's even as simple as, I mean, for me, I look at it as discipleship, and that kind of like goes through this lens of mine of everything that we do within our church as well. Yeah. And man, if you're inviting people over to your house on a Saturday or even this Sunday to watch the Super Bowl game, invite all your production volunteers and whoever come over to your house, watch the game. It could be a potluck. You don't gotta pay for anything, and they just show up. And what you're doing there is like creating this camaraderie, this familial like feel to things. And if y'all did that once a month, just to hang out, they would start inviting people.
Yep.
They would start telling people more about production. They would be more bought in. Even if y'all just, we did this thing, we've done it often, but once a month before COVID hit, we'd have a game night basically, which was, and we'd have a game night as a team at West Congregation. And it was just like this thing we call Fishbowl. And it was a mixture of 3 games and we just played it. And we played for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And we had food and just hung out, and it was awesome. And we have so many production volunteers at our campus right now that are super bought in because they feel like they're a part of what we're doing. They feel like they're a part of everything that we're about.
It's interesting how the worship pastor role really requires those two sides. There's the worship, like musician, creative role, but then there is this pastoral role of discipleship and like leading your teams. And it takes both to do it well, to do that role well.
Yep.
No doubt.
Tell me about the band model. Is it only one band, or do you have multiple bands on a campus?
Yeah, it depends on the worship leader. So like Jimmy and I, we both have our band that we play with, and some
like
of
separately.
Separately. Sorry.
Yeah, each worship leader has their own band.
Yeah, and some
That's
of those
awesome.
band members. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it creates a lot of freedom for us as worship leaders to, last minute if we need to change a song or something. It's easy because we've been playing together for forever, and we know like the tendencies, and we know there's just a comfortability in that. So,
and that band, we rehearse weekly.
Yeah.
So we're working on new songs. We're working on like arrangements of songs and making things sound better. Even tomorrow morning we're rehearsing, and I have these thoughts of like adding this song into this song, making that bridge connect here. Instead of trying to do that Sunday morning, we're gonna do the rehearsal and spend time to make it sound like very fluid and feel flawless, and everybody be on the same page. And so
definitely, it's not easy. I know there's some people who are listening to this like we'll never be able to get to that point. We have so many volunteers, and I get
Yeah.
that because we've had these conversations before. But I do know that there's something to be said for having like set bands of people
Yep.
who play together a
Yep.
lot. So even if you have a bunch of volunteers, like have an A band and a B band and a C band or something, that you rotate. There's just there's something so unifying of having the same people.
Yeah. And I would say within that,
Mhm.
not letting the A band be like all the best players.
Yeah.
Like actually mixing in people in each band that
Yeah.
are really, really good. And then the folks that are really good, encouraging them to disciple the people that aren't that good
Yeah.
and bringing them in and doing lessons and like teaching them what it looks like to disciple them. Because Jesus told us to like go and make disciples, not volunteers. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's what we ought to be doing is
Yeah,
just
for sure.
discipling others how to love well and care for other people well too.
I love that model. And honestly, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but while we were talking about this, that reminds me of when I was on staff at Willow Creek, leading worship for their student ministries. I actually did that as far as making an A band, a B band, a C band, and it wasn't by level. And actually, I didn't even call it ABC. I let them all choose a name for the band, so they had like
Yeah,
a
that's
creative
cool.
name
That's
for their
awesome.
band. But the reasoning behind it was that I treated each of those bands as a small group, and it
Yes.
helped to be able to like disciple like that group of students
Yep.
every
That's good, man.
single time they were on. And
Absolutely.
I agree with you that musically, you get better when you've played with the same people
For
a
sure.
bunch. You get better, all boats rise, but, also it just builds community. The more you play together as, like, this one core, it builds this, like, bond that is very special and unique,
Totally.
and I love that model, and if a church can pull that off, I think
Yeah.
that's the way to go. If you can actually get people to commit to a band, like, and playing once a month or something.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
For sure.
Even like playing once a month and rehearsing once a month or something
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because rehearsal's key, not Sunday morning. It shouldn't be, in my opinion,
Mhm.
the only rehearsals that happen shouldn't just be on Sunday morning.
totally, and if you even treat it I remember going out to dinner with these guys afterwards and treating it like a small group. "Hey, tell me about what's happening in your life," and
Absolutely.
Yep.
praying
Yeah.
together. Like, there's huge things you can do there.
Mhm.
Dude, I'll tell you this, man. At my rehearsals, not everybody does this. Like we all do our rehearsals differently. But man, I have such a huge conviction for prayer at my like within my band that my rehearsal starts with prayer. And there's been one or two times that we didn't get to any music. We prayed the entire time.
Mhm.
And people have prayer requests. And I tell them all the time, I care more about you than I do about music. And I want you to feel cared for because when you feel cared for, you'll it'll come out of your music and you'll actually want to
Yeah.
worship Jesus. So
Mhm.
Wow, that's so good. What would you guys say has been the most challenging thing for you guys to face during this season of COVID
man, I would
from a
say,
worship pastor perspective?
yeah, man, I would say it's kind of twofold because for me personally, I can't take away my own personal
Mhm.
like life and like aspects of like all the things that have happened in my life over
Mhm.
the last 2 years because there's been a lot of heartache and sadness and loss.
Mhm.
But that has affected the way that I've led. And I've been very vulnerable with our congregation and people as I've led them. And I feel like that vulnerability has brought about intimacy with the congregation as well. But I think the hardest thing, man, which a lot of churches are dealing with is, man, just how people migrate in a way where they're
Mhm.
like, we were all in church, and then now we're not in church, and now some people are coming twice a month,
Yeah.
once a month,
Yeah.
and just the doorway in a way of different people coming in, like every
Some people
Sunday,
left
just
and never came
feels
back.
different. Yeah, some people have left and didn't come back, man. And as an elder, I
Mhm.
know who like some of those people, and
Yeah.
I've had to have phone calls with those people and call them and see what's going on in their lives, and that part's probably been one of the hardest things, man. It's just like pastoring and shepherding the flock, trying to do that really well in the midst of you also going through a lot of stuff,
Yeah. For sure.
and having to have empathy and sympathize with other folks, man, that are
Yeah.
all through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say just the lack of proximity to our people. I mean, I think we saw it over COVID.
Hmm.
People realized that they could just do church online, and be in their living room, and so I'm like, man, there's such a value in being in the same room together, and being able to communicate that. And then, I mean, for me personally, it was just hard to be away. It was just hard to be on Zoom calls and
Hmm.
leading
Get that.
worship over Zoom a couple times. I mean, it was just weird. It was the weirdest thing. Who knows what that did to us? Only time will tell.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't feel like we've even fully emerged from it yet. It's I don't know that it'll ever be like it was, but that's
Hmm.
okay. Like
Yeah. There's a lot of churches really struggling
yeah,
with
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
I guess I'll see you guys in the metaverse next week or something.
Yeah.
So we got a question from Brad, a live question here. We're going to pull it up on the
Brad.
screen. This is an interesting question. So if you have a culture, so how do you change this? How do you change the culture where maybe you have musician volunteers have this kind of attitude of you need me more than I need you, and so then they're just like showing up to practice late, showing up to services late. It's interesting because I even almost like remember like times when I've had volunteers that I don't know if they would say like you need me more than I need you, but they definitely have this mentality of just like I roll how I run, like I'll show up to rehearsal 30 minutes late, never practicing the music. Like, how do you change that kind of mentality in that culture if you have that type of issue?
Man, that's hard because I think that's more of a heart issue
Yep.
that you got to deal with.
Yep.
Like the church does not exist to serve your gifts, like your gifts exist to serve the church.
Preach.
Like it's not like
Preach.
we're not like we love the joy that you get by serving the
Mhm.
church, but honestly, like not every single time you should want to take the people who are most faithful and who are most bought in and who love Jesus the most rather than just based on their gifting. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Like there's been so many times, even us, like when we're talking about musicians, we have two different like drummers we could use,
Yeah.
and maybe one needs a little bit more development, but his heart is in the right place. Like
Yeah.
I would rather spend the time developing this guy because he loves Jesus and
Yeah. It's
that kind
like
of thing. His
character
heart,
over competency.
yeah, character
Yeah.
over competence. Like that's just such a good value. So
Yeah. And I would,
Yeah, and
I would also add, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, I think this is also definitely a result of loving the music more than the people.
Yeah.
And
yes,
if people
100%.
sense that you're just like you care more about the production, more about the music than you care about them, this kind of mentality can grow and kind of fester, and
It-
Yeah.
that's where the pastoral part of being a worship pastor comes in.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I would encourage him to start meeting with him
Hmm.
like bi-weekly or even weekly, just to have breakfast and ask him, hey, how was your week?
Yeah,
How are you doing? Asking them about
hear
life,
his story.
hear the story, all the things. And then like as they see that you care about them, they'll be okay with you sharing some hard stuff with
Hmm.
them and even telling them, hey, you need to take 3 months off from
Yeah,
music. I had to have some really hard conversations with people in the past, of even telling someone that I believe that they idolize music and that they should not play for 3 to 6 months and just come to church. And that was a hard conversation, but it needed to happen.
Yeah, lay it down. You guys, I appreciate you taking the time to talk, and it's always just fun to kind of talk about, you know, guys who are like really like putting worship music out there, but also who are in the trenches every single week, and you're doing the hard work of being a worship pastor, and there's a lot of people who relate to you in that, and so I appreciate you guys sharing your heart and
Mhm.
for joining us on the show.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
man.
so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
All
See
right.
ya.
All right, you guys. So good to have the guys from Austin Stone Worship. Such an interesting conversation, talking about volunteers and organizing bands and the tension of being a worship musician, the music side, but then also the pastoral side of managing people and loving people and discipling people. And it can be a tricky calling. So always a good conversation. If you guys have not, make sure you go check out Austin Stone Worship on Apple Music, Spotify, probably wherever you listen to music. They're there. So go to Austin Stone Worship, listen to the music, listen to their new album, Something Greater. I'm going to check out that song actually right now when we're done with this. Something Greater. They said that that's one of their favorite songs. And so make sure you check that out. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Thanks for joining us for Loop Live. If you have not yet already, make sure you hit the subscribe button or the follow button wherever you're watching this video, and we'll see you soon.